Well, Jay-Z had a problem. He right there in the corner, by the way. Jay-Z has had a few rumors himself, but more like speculation. People see Jay-Z in a picture of R. Kelly, they're like, I guess they both make music. Then Jay-Z with Harvey Weinstein. People are like, I guess they both do business. Then, of course, Jay-Z with Diddy. Now, hold on. Here's the thing. Jay-Z and Diddy go way back. Like back to the days when they were both coming up. So you could say they might just have a lot of respect for each other. But on the other hand, people are like, well, if you've known each other that long, Jay-Z, you must have known what Diddy was on. But Jay-Z has always had a history of keeping quiet, which brings us to Aaliyah. Now, I'm sure y'all remember R. Kelly dated Aaliyah when she literally needed her parents' permission slip to get married. Now, if I remember correctly, her parents got the permission slip and said, marry who? And that's how this whole thing got exposed. Now, a lot of people in the industry actually knew about this relationship because they would work with R. Kelly. They would be in the studio with R. Kelly. Now, according to Dame Dash, who listened closely, was Jay-Z's first business partner and also dated Aaliyah when she was 21. He said this is how it went. He said he didn't want anything to do with R. Kelly because everyone knew what type of timing R. Kelly was on. He looks over at Jay-Z and Jay-Z's out here creating collab albums with R. Kelly. But then he saw why. For starters, everyone had a crush on Aaliyah. People were waiting down the clock until she turned 18. But Jay-Z decided to get a head start. Now, there was absolutely no proof that Jay-Z went after Aaliyah, but people were like, let me see another picture. But apparently Jay-Z wasn't successful and Dame Dash started dating her when she was 21. Now, what does this all have to do with Diddy? It's the secrets. It's the, like what happened to Diddy, making people wonder. Nas came out, well, he technically didn't come out and say this, but while he was having his legendary beef with Jay-Z, he's doing a radio interview and he's saying, it's weird that Jay-Z be working with people that need a permission slip to marry somebody, R. Kelly. But again, rumors, kind of like what was happening to Diddy. But then this lawyer comes out and says, boy, do I got some news for y'all. And here's where it starts to get wicked. Now, he's going after Diddy. Specifically, listen closely, anyone that Diddy might have done something to, or anyone who has watched Diddy do some of these things and stayed silent about it. Now, first of all, the lawyer's taking calls from anyone. So theoretically, anyone could just call trying to get some money saying Diddy did this to me, Diddy should pay me. But in the lawyer's defense, I'm sure he's looking for people with proof. Honestly, I don't know him. He could be trash. Anyway, what he said next is what got people interested. He said, and I got some names. He said some wild names. Some names that will blow your mind. He's selling this. He said, yo, y'all finna wild out when you hear these names. I'm not gonna say it now, but y'all finna wild out. So people are like, Now, in Beyonce's case, it's just because she's married to Jay-Z and she's been in the industry for like 20 years. People are like, you must have known something. But that's all people have. Now, in Jay-Z's defense, he's famously all about the money. As far as we've seen, he's always been around Diddy for like a public event or when money's involved. And the same could be said for all the other people he was around. He could have thought, oh, R. Kelly's huge right now. Let me do an album with him to boost my name up. Many people have come out saying Jay-Z is a cutthroat businessman, kind of like Bill Gates, who I actually think is a sociopath, but that's a story for another day. And cutthroat businessmen will cross any line and work with anyone to get what they want. Because at the end of the day, to them, it's just business. That being said, that doesn't make this a good thing. That's why Jay-Z can still be prosecuted for watching crimes happen but not saying anything about it. But at the end of the day, as you probably know, Jay-Z is rich. He's not going to jail for that. It would need an insane amount of evidence, and even then, he would still probably get off. But that doesn't really matter in some cases. A lot of times, reputation is the most important thing. So a lot of times, the courts will take a case they know they can't win or sign a deal just to get the rumor mill started and get people going, yo, why did Bill Cosby sign a deal? For those of you that don't know, Bill Cosby was arrested like 20 years before the big, allegations came out. They told him, just tell us you did it and we won't broadcast this. He said, absolutely. I need to save my reputation. People started asking questions. Boom, boom, boom. 20 years later, he goes to jail. But he actually did get out because the cops did say they were going to keep his confession low key.
And so deeply rooted in years of silence that even the biggest power players are scrambling behind the scenes. For years, these two towering figures moved like shadows across the landscape, shaping culture, money, influence, and public perception with every quiet decision they made. They weren't just a part of the world at the top. They were the top. Entire networks bent around their power. Entire movements formed because of them. Entire fortunes existed because of their influence. But the moment these new pieces of evidence surfaced, everything shifted. Everything changed. It wasn't just a scandal. It wasn't just a headline. It was a rupture. A crack in the foundation so deep that every move they ever made is now being re-examined through a darker lens. And what's emerging is not the clean, polished image they spent years presenting. What's emerging is the truth. Messy, disturbing, music layered, and impossible to contain now that the door has cracked open. It all began quietly, the way these things always do. A single leak here.
What's happening with Puffy? I know you're not really tapped in, but what
the last thing I saw was like a guy there. He was like, yo, he like pushed me into the truck. It really hurt. And he sounded me. I was like, yo, look, I could find other things to do for money. Did you see the video? I could find other things to do for money. But I'm not sure I can say that for money. Somebody pushed
How much is this guy trying to get?
I don't know. Like, it's a simple suit situation, but it's like
20 mil, I can say it.
You still have the blackest face out. You still have to mimic his voice because he's like,
but his voice wasn't even that different.
And a little deeper. I was like, almost like, no, that's you, young buck. Yo, I almost felt like it was him. I almost knew who it was. You know what I mean? I was like, nah, that's fuck you trying to get money right.
Yo, you can't say that dudes are having sex with other dudes, bro. The internet might come for you.
Yo, sweet love, sweet love.
Yeah, you gotta say make sweet love.
That's young buck breaking right there.
Make sweet love.
There's rules to rap beef now, bro. Not in your day.
Well, I'm saying like, God, man, why is your homeboy so close to you when you come out of there? Look like you guys just made sweet love. I'm gonna say sweet love instead of anything that says.
To me, that's better because they're gonna try to make it something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was smart. Like I didn't think about that. I say things that are borderline. Like I'm like, oh my God, you're in trouble.
You?
Like all the time. Because I just say.
Nah, but you got close when he offered to take you shopping.
Yeah, you see, Amika's in the same shirt. He's out there in the same shirt. This is not Photoshop.
Shit. This is really happening. I'm just saying to you.
No, stop. Stop it, man. You set that up. Look, you set that up. There's he's in the same shirt.
What do you mean he's in the same shirt?
Obviously was not offended by what I was offended by. This is what I'm saying, bro. Like you go, I'm like, nah, it was odd. Like, this is some of the things that people say. Like, girls, guys may say to a girl, like, let me take a shot. See?
Damn.
They found it that quick.
What do you think is happening in the middle?
I don't know what is going on.
Wow,
there.
they found Kendrick and Whiteface.
You can't dress up Kendrick like that. Oh, you can't dress him up like that.
No, it's jokes.
That's like the White Chicks movie, bro. You can't do that.
Yeah, that was comedy. That was good.
Yeah, but that
get away with Whiteface.
That's obviously doing shopping. They got the same outfit.
Yeah, it's true. In public. Yeah, that's a nice shirt. That was a nice shirt. All right, so when he said the shopping line in real life, what did you say?
I said, let me get away from him. Because it was like, he was like, yo, you hot now. Now we got to hang out now. Like hang out. Yeah. He said, I don't know, maybe I'll take you shopping and I get you some flash and you could give me the hood shit. And I was looking and I was like, let me just move away from him because I'm going to mess up the wedding. I always say to myself, like,
it was someone's wedding?
It was Chris Lighty's wedding. He's in Miami. Wow. Nori's there. Nori knows this because I looked at him like, yo. You heard what he just said, right? He's like, yo, certain things they let it go by because it's Puff. Like they would look, like he would say stuff, and it's like he wasn't like in the closet, he was like in the hallway. Now you see so much shit that you go, wait. No, this was visible.
He was in the hallway. We saw the video.
We saw that video. It comes out later. You're like, that's not the closet. That's the hallway. He didn't give a fuck. Like you could tell that he was already.
A document circulating there. A conversation overheard by someone who wasn't supposed to be listening. At first, nobody paid attention. Nobody thought anything of it. These two figures had been bulletproof for so long that the idea of anything seriously touching them seemed ridiculous. They had built empires out of thin air. They had survived storms bigger than most people's entire careers. They had resources, connections, and networks strong enough to smother any spark before it became a flame. But this time, the flame wasn't a spark. It wasn't a rumor. It wasn't some loose accusation floating through the air with nothing behind it. This time it was real. This time it was documented. This time it was backed by witnesses, timelines, contradictions, and a trail of decisions that suddenly don't look like coincidences anymore. And with every new detail breaking into the public, the narrative that once protected them is collapsing piece by piece. What makes this even more shocking is that the evidence doesn't just involve.
Nah, New York is dope. Because when Fab, he was like, yo, Fab, we ain't party. Fab was like, nah, we partying tonight.
He's like, no, like, but he did party.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, they let that one go? Like, I had to say something about it later because I was like, oh, it was
What did it feel like all these years? You being the only one calling this out?
I look like I've been the crazy guy for a long
They
time.
said you're a hater. They said
You're a
you're
hater.
crazy.
You don't do this. Yeah, and now everybody's complaining. My ass is hurting. Like, there's all this shit that's coming.
50, you can't make jokes about it.
No.
The internet might come for you, bro.
All I'm saying
It
is,
might come from you.
you see it now. All of these complaints. People were damned. They were and pillaged. This was what was going on, right? And what do I get for the? I went through years of a hater. You're a hater. You want this and that. I'm just watching. Like, I look at things and go, when you see the new lawsuit coming with Jay, the part with Jay, I go, oh shoot, like. Then I think about it, I go, that had to be there. So when I was saying that he was missing, he just wasn't actively being out there because they was dealing with that.
Wait, do you think there's truth to the Jay thing? There's no way.
Know. Like that, look, you know what's like if you say, I have this thing where I'm conflicted when it takes you 20 years to remember something happened to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I go also 10 years, 20 years later, that comes back. And it's like all of Puff's problems are coming from the ministers touching little boys.
What you mean?
The laws are the way they are because
Because
Because of the priests.
the priests touching little boys.
Oh.
Why are they looking at me, bro? I
That's
just go to church. I just go to
That's
church,
your
right?
man.
Nothing to do with this. I have an alibi.
That's why the laws allow you to
We
go
got a
that
lot
far
of
back.
turn away from you right there.
I'm just a Catholic kid. Come on.
You've been diddled, dude.
No.
What's the body of Christ taste like?
That's sacrilegious. You can't do that.
He's like, yo, drink my blood.
Yo,
So it is crazy when after 20 years they come out. That shit is foul.
But with Puffy, you were the only one saying anything for decades.
yeah, because we had our own little thing.
But you were the only.
What was
Everybody
your
else
thing?
is scared.
Huh?
But everybody else is scared. So you think maybe this is a similar thing where everybody else is scared? I don't know what it is. I'm just
I
asking.
think that they're scared.
But if they're scared,
But
then
you've
maybe that's
been
why I'm saying so.
insinuating Jay-Z a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, you've been saying people gonna come for him a little bit.
No,
You've been
I
kinda-
thought he would do funky stuff like the Super Bowl. Like, it was not okay for me to be at the Super Bowl.
Oh, he tried to cut that.
Yeah, he didn't want me to. Well, they worked to make like there was an issue with me in the NFL that doesn't exist. And
So
then
he did the corporate way of
Yes.
trying to keep you down.
I'm
Oh, it's
doing
not
it.
me. It's not.
It's them. And then when M says he's not gonna do it if I'm not there, then
Let's go.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. You know,
That's what
But
I'm
what's
talking
your
about.
and Jay's issue?
it's just competitive stuff.
It's
for the
really
music.
just
This is
competitive.
what I'm saying. When it gets past actual art, like actual music, and you're trying to block something that's in business, then it feels weird. It feels like we should be having beef.
Oh,
Okay.
So
I can
that's the
see
behind
that.
the scenes thing that we don't see. It's
Yeah.
one thing when there's like people talking about each other in music.
Yeah.
But there's behind the scenes business deals that a guy is getting involved with on the side. And it's not like you're going to go public and be like, they tried to stop my vitamin water.
Yeah, or this deal, and you go. He said that to you, like.
Okay.
Wow.
I get that.
Like they'll speak to your temperament. Like say, you know, if 50 is a little crazy, he'll say anything. You see what saying anything did to Kanye.
So they're trying, he's basically trying to scare
Yeah,
people out of
out
doing
of
deals
doing
with
it.
you. Interesting. And then M shut it.
Isolated incidents. It paints a picture of a system, an orchestrated, well-oiled machine that operated in silence for years. Hidden behind glamour, success, reputation, and power, there are places, events, patterns, and connections emerging that the public was never meant to see. Every time another detail slips through, the world gets closer to seeing a version of these figures that no one was prepared for. And it's not just the public reacting. Behind closed doors, the panic is real. People who once probably stood beside these figures are suddenly backing away, distancing themselves, rewriting history in real time. Some insiders are whispering that this case isn't just serious. It's the kind of case that could drag dozens of unexpected names into the light. The kind that could unravel relationships that were supposed to stay hidden forever. The kind that could expose the blueprint of how power truly worked behind the scenes. The two central figures at the heart of this storm are facing something they have never dealt with before: loss of control for the
Jay-Z news. No, celebrities have been reacting to it as well. And I think a good place to start would be with rapper 50 Cent. Why? Why him? Because he has already been quite vocal during the Sean Combs legal saga. For instance, after the raids by federal agents on Combs' properties months ago, before his arrest, 50 Cent posted on Instagram, "Now it's not Diddy do it, it's Diddy done. They don't come like that unless they got a case." And he has posted several memes mocking Combs' legal troubles. He also shared a video from someone on social media that called Combs too freaky for society. And when Combs was officially arrested, he took to Instagram. He posted a picture of him and Drew Barrymore and wrote, "Here I am, keeping good company with @the Drew Barrymore Show, and I don't have 1,000 bottles of lube at the house." Obviously a reference to the amount of lubricant and baby oil that prosecutors revealed were recovered from Sean Combs' properties. And in fact, I should also tell you that 50 Cent is reportedly working on a Netflix documentary about Combs' legal troubles. But when it comes to Jay-Z, what did he say? He said a few things, or he did a few things. So first, I should tell you that there doesn't appear to be any love loss between the two of them, because back in the day, the two had a beef, at least through lyrics against one another. For instance, 50 Cent released the song How to Rob, in which he seems to suggest robbing Jay-Z, and Jay-Z put out a song called It's Hot, Some Like It Hot, in which he rapped, "I'm about $1, what the F is 50 Cent?" Now, although they had performed together in the past, maybe patched things up or looked like things were okay, doesn't really look like they're besties, because I mean, in 2011, 50 told MTV News, "We don't have those kinds of relationships. These people are people I associate with. We're in the same business. We're not necessarily friends. We don't call each other for no reason." And I should tell you, if you had any doubt about their friendship, well, what did 50 Cent do just in the wake of this Jay-Z lawsuit? Well, he posted on Instagram a meme of him in a car with the caption, "Okay, I don't know what's going on, but are we going to still have the Super Bowl? Worried emoji? I'm just asking for a friend." That, of course, is in reference to the fact that for the last few years, Jay-Z and his company Roc Nation helped to produce the Super Bowl halftime show. But he really wasn't done there, because you know how right after the lawsuit was filed, I mean less than 24 hours, Jay-Z, his wife Beyonce, their 12-year-old daughter Blue Ivy, and Beyonce's mom Tina Knowles attended the LA premiere of Mufasa, the Lion King. This is what we talked about in a previous sidebar. But now, in a deleted post on Instagram, 50 Cent wrote, "Jay said they said I raped a kid. Everybody get dressed, we gonna see Mufasa." Seemingly poking fun at him for going to a movie premiere in the wake of these brand new allegations. Now, to be clear, Beyonce and Blue Ivy both star in that movie. I don't think that they could have avoided the premiere, but maybe some would say you shouldn't have showed up. I don't know. But anyway, I will tell you, I interviewed body language expert Susan Constantine about how Jay-Z appeared at that premiere and whether it told us anything based on his body language. Take a look.
When I look at Jay-Z, you can see his lips pursed. That is a form of agitation. So when we look at that, when people purse or tighten their lips, it tells you a little bit about their cognitions, maybe that he's not really enjoying this as much as he's portraying when he was walking on. And what I'm looking for is a cluster. I see a horizontal stressor right across his forehead, and then he has his hand in his pocket. So we've got three things, which is a cluster. You would think that Jay-Z...
First time, they cannot silence the growing wave. They cannot redirect the narrative. They cannot pretend this is just noise from the sidelines. The evidence is too heavy. The timing is too precise. The connections are too strong to ignore. And now the investigators involved are pushing harder than ever before. Every day, more pieces fall into place. And the picture gets darker, more detailed, more impossible to deny. The industry's upper circles, the ones who always know what's coming before the public does, are already bracing for impact. There are meetings happening in private rooms late at night, phone calls being made with voices shaking despite their attempts to stay calm. Lawyers are stepping in. Crisis teams are being activated. Advisors are warning that the damage could spread far beyond the two figures at the center, because if one thread gets pulled too hard, everything connected to them comes undone with it. For years, these two giants operated with a level of untouchable confidence. They built their legacies on the assumption that no one could ever challenge them. Their public image portrayed unity.
Would have incorporated Beyonce into the mix by putting his arm around Beyonce's waist. We didn't see that here. So that's why I'm saying there's almost like a separation of two different frames. Beyonce, of course, alliances are with her daughter. You can see her leaning her head towards her daughter. Her daughter is out up front, is almost in a princess type of positioning. So overall, when I'm looking at this, the mannequin type of stance that Tina has, the agitation that Jay-Z is concealing. So what I mean by that, it's not an outward or expression. It's actually micro expressions of showing you what some of cognition might be.
But going back to 50 Cent for a second, you know what else he apparently did? Because it didn't end there. He apparently posts an AI-generated video of Jay-Z and Sean Combs in tuxedos getting arrested by police with the caption, "I want to post this, but I'm afraid I'm going to get shot. LOL, laughing emoji." Now, one other thing I have to mention about 50 Cent before we go to other celebrities. So he sat down for an interview with personality Big Boy, and it happened this week, and he addressed a lot of this. He said, "I haven't had issues with Puff where I don't like him. I don't like things that he would do that make me uncomfortable." And in terms of Jay-Z, he said, "I just hope things are all right for him internally. I mean at the crib." Because in the statement they mentioned his daughter being old enough to, because she about 13, so it's the same age as these kids they saying he did something to. And he also said the damage is already done by the allegation itself. And he even claimed that the NFL regarding the Super Bowl show, quote, will fall back in light of this lawsuit and they won't necessarily be associated to that, meaning the NFL, they won't necessarily stick with Jay-Z. Now, in terms of what he said about Jay-Z's home life, he seems to be referencing Jay-Z's statement that was put out after the filing of this complaint. And the statement accused Jane Doe's attorney, Tony Busby, of trying to blackmail him to settle the case before filing what he claims are false allegations. And he said the following, "My only heartbreak is for my family. My wife and I will have to sit our children down, one of whom is at the age where her friends will surely see the press and ask questions about the nature of these claims and explain the cruelty and greed of people. I mourn yet another loss of innocence. Children should not have to endure such at their young age. It is unfair to have to try to understand inexplicable degrees of malice meant to destroy families and human spirit." So that was basically what 50 Cent had to say so far. But going back to Tina Knowles, remember I mentioned her, I want to talk about her for a second and talk about her, I don't want to say reaction to Jay-Z's lawsuit because, as you'll see, she says this really wasn't her, but something very curious happened. There were reports that Tina Knowles liked an ABC7 Chicago Instagram post about the lawsuit with the caption reading, "Sean Jay-Z Carter and Sean Diddy Combs are accused of raping a then 13-year-old girl at an after-party following the 2000 Video Music Awards," according to an amended civil lawsuit that was filed Sunday. So, did she really like that? Well, she says no. In an Instagram post, she denied liking the post, claiming her account was hacked, writing, "As you all know, I do not play about my family. So if you see something uncharacteristic of me, just know that it is not me. And please stop playing with me. No weapon formed against my family shall prosper." And of course, as I mentioned, she attended the Mufasa premiere with Jay-Z and the family and looked in good spirits. So maybe that reaction wasn't really a reaction. But I will tell you who did react. Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal. So let me...
Power, dominance, and flawless control. But these new revelations crack that image open like glass. Suddenly the confidence looks like arrogance. The unity looks like conspiracy. The dominance looks like intimidation. And the control looks like a carefully maintained illusion designed to keep everyone else in the dark. The public doesn't know the half of it yet. That's the part no one is saying out loud. What has already come to light is only the surface layer, the beginning of a much bigger, more unsettling story. The investigators have barely released anything. The insiders leaking details are only letting small pieces slip through. The full picture, when it finally hits, will be something nobody is ready for. The most chilling part of all this isn't the evidence itself. It's the patterns emerging across different timelines, locations, and testimonies. When separate stories match, when different witnesses describe the same behavior, when timelines sync in ways that eliminate any possibility of coincidence, that's when the shock begins to set.
Set the stage for this one. So we go to the December 10th broadcast of Inside the NBA on TNT. And there is a discussion among the group of Kenny Smith, Ernie Johnson, Shaq, and Barkley about who could face off against commentator Stephen A. Smith on the basketball court. So at one point, Charles Barkley says to Smith, "You said the man isn't on your level. Stephen A. played college basketball." Now Smith defends himself, says that he's a champ, and then he says to Shaq, "Listen, man, do you think Jay-Z or..." And he starts to trail off, and before he can finish his thought, Barkley jumps in and goes, "Probably not a good time right now." All the panelists start laughing. The crew in the background starts laughing. Smith jokes and says, you're silly, man, while shaking his head. And then Shaq gets up, walks off stage, and hides behind a pillar in a joking fashion as Ernie Johnson says, "Go and see if you can fix the wall, will you, Shaq?" Now he ends up coming back to set without really further discussing Jay-Z. Just an interesting response, considering Jay-Z and Shaq have been photographed together through the years. But I guess what I'll say is just a lighter moment in what is a very, very serious and deeply disturbing set of allegations. Now, while that wasn't really specific what to make of that reaction, I will say who did get into specifics. Charlemagne. So he hosts The Breakfast Club, and he says the following: "Good for Hove. I'm glad Jay-Z responded just like that because this has been going on for too long. It is a grift. These accusers go to these lawyers with all these salacious claims. The lawyer will put more sauce on the salacious claims. They reach out to your team, say if you don't settle with us, we're going to go public with these claims. They'll tell you they're going to hold a press conference. We're going to do interviews. And a lot of people settle because they don't want the bad press. And most people settle. You'd be surprised how many people settle. The court of public opinion makes everybody guilty, so it makes a lot of people settle." And Hove said, "Kiss my A, I'm not settling, and I don't blame him." And then he went on to say, "At some point, this litigious blackmailing and extortion has to stop." And he also added, what you hear is this, right? You hear the initial accusation, but you don't ever see when the case gets dropped. You don't see when the case actually gets dismissed. That is a really interesting reaction. I mean, seemingly, he's not believing Jane Doe's claims, or Tony Busby, at least as of now. And seemingly, he is praising Jay-Z and his lawyers' aggressive strategy. We've talked about this before. Jay-Z knew this lawsuit was going to be filed. He had that response prepared. He and his attorney have been actively fighting since this case got filed to get the case dismissed. And they've been arguing that Jane Doe should have to reveal herself. And to not do so is procedurally improper. They have even said the case should be thrown out. They've gone on the offensive, calling Busby's actions extortion and blackmail, criticizing him for sending a demand letter prior to him being named in the lawsuit. And apparently Jay-Z filed his own lawsuit against Tony Busby, accusing him of extortion and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Now, some would say that Busby didn't do anything wrong, that a demand letter is very standard practice. You send the demand letter to try to settle the case or go to mediation. That is standard practice. But if Jay-Z is saying these claims against him are false, and this was just an attempt to settle so he wouldn't be exposed, this isn't right, he says, and he's fighting it. I will say it'll be interesting to see if more lawsuits come out against Jay-Z, because I will say in his lawsuit against Tony Busby, he seems to indicate that Busby has accused him of misconduct, not just with respect to this Jane Doe, but at least one other person. And
settle in. That's when the truth becomes undeniable. That's when people begin to realize the magnitude of what was happening behind the curtain all along. Even the two figures caught in the center seem to understand that the situation is spiraling. People close to them say their confidence has cracked. They're not speaking with the same calm certainty they once had. They're not brushing anything off. They're scrambling. They're reacting. They're moving pieces around in desperation, trying to slow down a wave that won't stop. The illusion of control has evaporated, and now more insiders are stepping forward. People who stayed silent for years are suddenly finding their courage. Some are speaking out because they finally feel safe. Some because they see the opportunity to distance themselves. Some because they were tired of carrying the weight of what they knew. And with every new voice joining the conversation, the story gets harder to bury. The case is no longer seen as an isolated problem. It's being labeled a systemic issue, an entire culture built around power, secrecy, and silence. And the two central figures, once symbols of success, are now symbols of a dark structure that many people always suspected but could never prove. The industry is terrified because they know what's coming next. More investigations, more digging, more scrutiny, more secrets unraveling. If this case blows wide open, it doesn't end with just two people. It spreads, it exposes, it drags the entire structure into the light. And that is what has everyone panicking the most. Not just what these two did, but what exposing them could reveal about everyone else tied to them. The shock waves are already visible. Projects paused, deals frozen, allies jumping ship, silent accusations circulating behind closed doors. There's a sense that the world is watching a downfall in slow motion. Each new revelation cracking the foundation a little more until the entire structure finally collapses. These two figures spent years building an empire out of influence and perception. Now the very thing they built is turning against them. Public opinion is shifting. Support is fading. Fear is spreading. And the truth, once buried under layers of power, is rising to the surface, unstoppable and unforgiving. This isn't the end of the story. This is just the beginning. The evidence that has surfaced so far is enough to ignite a global conversation, but it's nowhere near the full extent of what's coming. The investigators know more. The insiders know more. And the people who remained silent for years are just now finding the strength to speak. The real storm hasn't even hit yet,